Hi, you're listening to the Taking Ground podcast, connecting you to the many excellent churches, ministries and people within our wider family. You can keep up to date with the latest from Taking Ground at takingground.org.uk and never miss an episode of this podcast by hitting subscribe. But for now, here's your host, Rachel Broughton.
So today I've got Ste MacFarlane with me from 313. Morning, it's so good to have you on the podcast.
Good.
I'm really looking forward to it. There's just so much to get through, so much to talk about, so much content. And before we dig into 313, because that's what we want to focus on today, we want to know all about 313 and the ministry there. But I want to go back a little bit to the beginning because 313 is such an incredible organisation. It's an amazing ministry. But it doesn't begin there for you, really. This has been something that's been building for a lot of years. And I want to kind of go back a little bit to the beginning. Where did it start for you, Ste? How did you get a heart for training and what's that been about? How did that start?
I think I wouldn't say it's a heart for training to start off with.
Sure.
It's a heart to change society through the kingdom of God, really. So we're going back really 20-something years. As I'd become a Christian when I was 24, 25-ish. And within probably 18 months to 2 years of becoming a Christian, I'd went to an Ultimate Intention meeting, if you remember that. They were for, young leaders in Salt and Light. And there was a guy come in and he asked the question of, what is your must?
So what is your
must? What must you do
in life
before God takes you home?
Okay.
And that probably took me properly 2 years to answer.
I was going to say that's a huge question. You can't just answer that on a
Yeah.
little weekend away, can you?
It's not what did you want to do, even it was what must you do.
So it's not a bucket list. It's not like this lovely spiritual tick list of things to achieve, but it's actually what's God got in you, what's God got for you that you've got to do, you've got to achieve. Yeah.
So that question's not for everyone, but that question really, really resonated with me, and it really caused me to what? And the answer in the end was, I must change where I live. I must change society. Wow. I must change the town I'm living in. I must have an effect on it. That then caused me, in my younger days, to write a PowerPoint of what am I going to change in the town? What am I going to change politically? What am I going to change for people? And
was it animated and did it have sound effects?
Wouldn't go that far. I didn't have the skill level even then.
But that's amazing. So lots of different categories of things that for you could see that needed transformation.
So it was about transforming, and then it was how do I do that? And at the time I was still working for DuPont. I was still in eldership in MCC. And there was still all this stuff that was growing in me of how to do that. And then, obviously, the guys, apostolic team then, go back now, 11 or 12 years ago, asked me to have a look at training and have a look at something called Daniel Challenge. So even before that, I was instrumental in looking at CAP coming to Middlesbrough and how MCC get involved in feeding the poor, etc. So there's lots of things that are already doing in a Middlesbrough Community Church scenario that were helping me unfold and this idea of how to change everything.
CAP was looking at people's finances, right? Christians Against Poverty. Yeah. So looking at the poorest of the poor and the people really struggling, swallowed in debt. How can we impact them? So I can see that for you, the answer to the question of what must you do? I must see change where I live. Okay, well, people are in debt. How can we do that? Okay, CAP. Let's get CAP in. I totally
so there was a few things like that I was able to explore with MCC and begin to, see the impact of what I was dreaming about on a smaller scale. Coming and leaving DuPont 11 or 12 years ago now, and having a look at Daniel Challenge. For me, I didn't want, when the guys asked me to look at what does a year out programme look like, I didn't want it to be a typical year out programme that I saw around Christianity, which was, it's raining today, what do we do? Oh, it's sunny tomorrow, let's do something different. I wanted a real structured programme, and because I come from industry, it was very easy for me to think, well, actually, I want to make this like an apprenticeship, where the guys were coming in every day, There were none that were doing, none what had to be done, what to be achieved. So actually, I wanted to make Daniel Challenge, how does it serve society? And therefore, in that service, how do we serve the people who are coming to do the programme to move them forward as well?
Yeah, two sides of the coin. How do we serve the community? How do we serve the people coming in to do the programme?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was about joining that up, and therefore it was a no-brainer to make it like an apprenticeship with qualifications. So people were getting real work experience, real life experience, real discipleship, real servanthood, real ministering to people, whilst they were getting a qualification and a lot of things to write in a CV.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, so it was how do I get all that together in one package? Right, let's rewrite Daniel Challenge and let's bring qualifications in there. So we're getting genuine young people coming through with genuine leadership and servanthood. And actually, if they want to use that in the church, great. If they want to use that in society, great.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So we could then able to get leaders into the workplace, leaders into society.
And this is incredible, because what you're looking at is how do we not change society just from we're going to do little parachute ministries, but how do we change society by changing the people who go out into society?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's great.
So that we did that for for a couple of years, changing how that looked, and then the opportunity to then look at sort of senior leadership education training, and what does it look like to raise real senior leaders. So we continued doing Daniel Challenge while we looked at that, and Daniel Challenge went on for a further 9 or 10 years before COVID eventually paused it. We were able to look at something that we call Academy of Ministry and Leadership, or AML. And when I looked at that, we could have had a look at different levels of leadership. You can have an operational level of leadership, which basically means someone above you tells you what to do and then you do a really good job doing that piece of work for them. Or
Management, yeah.
Yeah, or strategic leadership, where you have to really think, how do I strategise something, make something happen? And I felt we decided, actually, if we're going to take leadership seriously, that's the level that we should be looking at, which is what's called level 7 in the education world. It's like sort of master's degree level. So how do we do this really well was a question that we started asking, and the way I thought we should do it well is we give someone a scope of work, a project, a business, a church plant, something where in 2 years they have to produce something, and within that scope of work. So within that scope of work, we were then able to then teach people how to do change management, business plans, leadership styles, understanding what genuine different styles and types of leadership are for themselves, for looking after others, for changing cultures, and for making businesses or projects work. So it's all the project management of all that.
So give me an example of what you mean by scope of work and what that would then produce after those couple of years. And I could say that, and I'm laughing because I did AML, so I know exactly. So
let's pick 2 examples, so it's really straightforward. Say it was within the church, and the church wanted a piece of work. We have a worship leader who comes and wants to do AML. How does a worship leader get a master's degree? Well, actually, let's make this scope of work of you start a record label. You make this record label work. You write records. You sell them through the record label. You make sure that you've done all the marketing piece of work. You've done the business plan. Actually, you form a team of worship players around you. You give them training. You make your sound. You make your culture in that worship team. So there's a piece of work where we're getting culture, we're getting business plans, we're getting project management, we're getting sales, we're getting real leadership into how to form a team, how to create that team. So there would be a project over 2 years. So at the end of it, where you could have something like a taking ground music, that comes out of that.
Sure.
So that would be an example within the church. Outside of the church, so I'll give you a real example. So we had someone who at the time was the head of a school, and then as head of a school, they had to basically raise some money to put an extension on the school. So how do they do that? So they can come to us, and we can give, and this is a Christian head. So how do you set up the culture of Christianity in the school? How do you raise the money through project management, through planning, through vision setting, through changing stuff that goes on in the schools? Yeah. So there would be a project where £500,000 was raised to put a school extension on, but actually not just a school extension, changing the way the staff work, changing the way the schools ran, changing the way even how teachers behave in their classrooms, all could be done in society through our programme. Wow. So there would be something that AML, again, that was a real world situation.
That's amazing.
So that would be a scope of work,
yeah,
for someone to change their school. So that's how we looked at doing AML, which we done Daniel Challenge, now we're doing it Daniel Challenge AML. My question is, why isn't this changing society? Why aren't what we're doing with qualifications? So now we're doing qualifications at level 2, level 3 and level 7 with an organisation called BTEC, an organisation called National Open College Network. Why aren't we doing this in society? So we had a look at, we went to the apostolic team and said, we'd love to start doing this in society. Have I got permission to give this a run at? Yeah. And the answer was, you just crack on, Steve.
I think at this point they didn't know what to do with you, do they? Throw a loaded bomb.
Yeah. So we then did a piece of work where really in society you need to have something called a training provider number.
Oh, okay.
Which is something you have to get off the government. So we did a due diligence piece of work with it was Skills and Education Department.
Okay.
And we got through that in first go.
Wow.
Which every training provider told us, good luck with that. No, we did. It was very straightforward by the grace of God.
I was going to say, sometimes God just does make a way, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
And God did make a way, because we filled the paperwork in, not knowing whether it was the right answers or not, but it was the right answers. So that was really good.
Right.
So this training provider number then opens doors to you now. It means that you can actually go and bid and procure contracts of different government departments, whether that's DWP, whether that's the Ministry of Justice, whether that's the local authority. And so we didn't start there to begin with. We just started with Housing Group 13, which is a local housing association. Yeah. And we just said to them, is anyone behind in rent? And we'll give them some money courses. Is anyone on an ASBO? And we'll give them, educational courses to get them back into as good citizens. Yeah. We were very low level, and they give us our first £5,000 to train 100 people.
Wow.
And we managed to do that for a couple of years with them. But we had trouble really breaking into the local authorities at the time, until we managed to get a £10,000 contract with Middlesbrough Community Learning Service to train about 187 people. It was something ridiculous. And literally we killed ourselves doing it.
Yeah.
With getting all our pricing wrong.
Yeah.
Getting all our courses wrong. It's
all learning, isn't it? These things, you do it for the first time, you don't know what you're doing, really. You've got to...
Yeah, and we completely didn't know what we were doing. We just knew that we wanted to touch people. And really the heart behind it was this heart of transforming a life.
Yeah.
And we did this, and then we managed to get a contract with Durham County Council for £45,000, which really massively helped us, and not just helped us in the sense of financing what we were trying to do, but helped us in the sense of we were able to learn with Durham County Council the business and pricing.
Yes.
And recognised how far wrong we'd been. And they had good people over there to show us, this is how you should be costing this up. This is how it works. And they took us through at the time they were getting Ofsteded. So they took every training provider through a load of training and through this health check that we had to go through every month of where we were at in your quality standards, where we were at in your financial standards, where we were at in your legal governance standards, etc., which helped us really sharpen who we were as a business.
And again, you can just see God's hand on it, the timing of winning that contract and that training being provided. It's just amazing, isn't it?
So that was really good, and we did work with them for 2 years, but we just felt that what we wanted to do really wasn't what we were doing. We were training people, but really 313 was never about training. It was always about transforming lives. Everything that, going back 25 years, it wasn't really about you know, changing the political status. It's about how do I transform lives through politics, how do I transform lives through business, how do I transform lives through charities. It was always about transforming lives, and running short courses, we weren't able to have enough time to spend with people to actually get hold of their life and explain who Jesus was, what their life could look like with him, etc. So we'd gone through this probably 3.5 years of just learning the business, running around ragged, and we made a decision to, and at that time we'd won quite a number of contracts. We were working as far down as York and as far up as Hexham with contracts. So we'd actually got ourselves in a position where we'd had, I guess, 5 or 6 different contracts with different local authorities. And we were killing ourselves driving everywhere for 2 or 3 day courses. And we decided, let's have a revisit of what we said we wanted to do, which was about transform lives, and now really doing it. So we devised a course that we call Advance. And we brought everything back to Teesside, and we stopped all our contracts, which at the time was, it seemed like the right decision, but where we were going to get the money from and what did this look like. But we had enough contracts in Teesside to begin to look at this. And we started off by, the advanced course originally was called Giving Back course. And it was a course where we had people for longer time. So we may have been in a church painting their walls for 2 or 3 weeks. Well, we're given qualifications. The guys were coming back and they knew they were giving back to society. But even then we thought, it's just not quite right. So we produced a course called Advance, which still runs today, where guys come to us 4 days a week for 4 weeks. And they get formal qualifications, they get education, they get work experience, and then we try to move them on to employment. And that's the main programme. We have pre-advanced and post-advanced where we keep people on, etc. But since doing that and bringing everything back and really trying to work on what is it we're trying to achieve here, to transform life. Transform life whether someone gets a job or not. Transform life whether someone gets, you know, qualification or not. And that's really what we want to do in a tin, and that's really the place where I feel we've got to.
Yeah.
Our culture's about sharing Jesus, giving people hope, giving them a tailored experience, making sure that they feel valued and they're made of worth. And actually all that input of the culture of who we are and sharing that your life can be transformed really is what we were about. And at the time when we very first started all this, you may not remember, we were actually called something like North East Training. And we knew that was a ridiculous name, really.
It just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Nice.
And actually, Philippians 3:13 was wrote by a DC member, painted on a wall in our office. Right, what do we call ourselves? What are we trying to do here? And Philippians 3:13 basically says, forget what's in your past, press on the goals that Christ has called you towards. So when people come to us, the first thing we say to them is, we don't care what your past is.
Yeah.
We want to tell you that you matter to God, that you can have your life transformed by him, that you're worth something, that you matter, that you are loved, and that, you know, we're going to do it. We don't care where you've come from, what you've done, how you've done it. We want to tell you that. Let's look forward and let us take you forward in life.
Yeah.
And so we changed the name of the organisation to 313. We left the Philippians out. Why? Because 2 reasons. We wanted something short and sweet, but mainly people were 313. What's that mean?
Yeah.
Right, straight away. Let's tell you what where it's from the Bible. Let's tell you what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about this.
Good.
It's a.
No, I didn't know that. I was going to ask you, where does the 313 name come from? That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's a trick as well. Even when we go into winning contracts.
Yeah.
Even when we go into a contract interview, they go, "Why 313?"
Yeah.
Let us tell you what we're about then.
That's great. That's great. And you said you brought it all back to Teesside, but actually, since doing that, you've been able to look beyond, haven't you? I think when you begin to get clear about who you are and what you've done and what you're going to do, you can then begin to expand it, can't you? And it does serve more than just the Teesside. It is beyond that now, isn't it?
Yeah. So what we've been fortunate to do is, once we've got this right on Teesside, we ask the question, how do we now unfold this?
Yeah.
Really across, you know, particularly where taking ground is, you know, where can we go where taking ground is, as So our first step was with Sunderland.
Yeah.
Hey, for you.
I know, yeah.
So we've been working with a guy called Colin Fossard for quite a while, and known Colin, and it was a no-brainer to work with Colin. He was already on the ground doing some stuff. We'd asked him to do some stuff with us. We had the building with the Southwick Methodist place that you guys were using yourselves. So we could paint that, we could do its gardens, we could...
landscape, the whole thing. It was amazing.
So now we were able to go, right, how do we replicate this? And let's do this somewhere else. And we started in Sunderland, and we've got 2 contracts in Sunderland now.
Yeah.
And we've got Colin and a guy called John. Yeah. Well, I know you know John very well.
Johnny's my brother-in-law, yeah.
So they do a fantastic job for us. And so we've got you going in Sunderland. And then with the help of the probation service, are now Ingeus, who we work for, who are subcontract the probation service. We do this now in Durham as well on their behalf. Yeah. So the goal is to try and work with churches though, because if someone is saved, well actually this isn't about empire building. No. Let's go into the church where you're saved from. So it's like, let's build other people's churches for them. It's even in Teesside, it's not about, you know, building an empire for 313 or even an empire for TVC. Yeah. If someone's come from somewhere in Middlesbrough or South Bank or Redcar, well, let's point them to the church.
That they can be discipled in and grow in. It's kingdom, isn't it? Yeah. It's kingdom thinking. So we've talked a lot about impact. How can you see lives transformed? And we've focused on the training side of it and what that looks like. But what does that actually look like in reality? Yeah. Can you give us, I know you won't be able to say people's names necessarily, but just some idea of what does this mean for people's lives? How does it change them? And they've forgotten their past, great, but what does their future look like?
So I'll give you 3 good stories. I'm not going to give you average stories. I'll give you 3 good stories.
Give us a good one, Steve.
And I will change them. I'll just call everyone John, possibly.
John.
All right. John and Bob. There we go. So let me just talk about a few weeks ago. We had a young guy come to us for training, a guy called John. And John was a very shy guy, very gentle, lovely lad, very nervous. Obviously had some bad experience in his past, wasn't ready to share them. But turned up, you know, every single day. We were sharing the gospel with John, and it was having, you know, some interest, but nothing more than interest. And then one day we were running a different programme here. Someone else in the church was doing something here, where just learners and other people's lives cross. This individual called Bob come in the church, recent convert, had his own history and stuff. He's sat in the foyer, and John, our learner, sees him and freaks out. Literally physically shaken, couldn't control himself. Anyway, we grab hold of him, take him into the room, try to calm him down. That's what's going on. And we find out the reason why he's so nervous and the reason why he's so frightened about life is that Bob, 2 years previously, had taken a crowbar to John and beat him to a pulp, so he was in hospital. Now, obviously you understand if someone's done that to you and you see them again, you would be a physical wreck. Yeah. So obviously then we have to go and see Bob and have a chat with him. He acknowledges, that was before he was a Christian. I'm a recent Christian. I've changed my life now. I'd love the opportunity to say sorry and apologise and make some sort of amends. Now, I don't want to force that on John, but if that could be the case, I'd like to do that. So we go back to John and say, is this a possible thing that you can do? We'd be around you, you know, you wouldn't be in a room by yourself, etc. And by the grace of God, he said yes.
Wow.
And so we had a meeting on the afternoon, put them both together. There was tears and there was hugs. And there was like genuine, like, you know, a meeting together of them. As that was really, really good. And Bob acknowledged everything, didn't blame anyone but himself. Really, really good. Now, the problem we're going to have is Bob's coming every week now, so this isn't going to be the first time.
It's not going to be the last time. Yeah.
So that meeting went extremely well. The following week, there's a meeting over here with, again, lots of people in the room. John's got a bad back. We pray for John, his back's healed.
Wow.
Bob comes over, shakes his hand again, asks if everything's all right, everything's good. Prays with him.
Wow.
An hour later, we go back to him. Do you think God's in all this? Yeah. Now you give your life to the Lord. John gives his life to the Lord.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is a journey. If you could see the car park only 2 weeks ago, where John and Bob are stood talking in the car park at TVC on a Sunday morning.
Wow. This is just the grace of God, isn't it? And this is what God's in the business of, is reconciliation, forgiveness, future, hope. Wow.
Yeah. So there'd be one fantastic story. Another story is of a guy, let's change his name, let's call him Carl. Carl comes to us, broken relationship with a girlfriend, couple of kids. Hasn't worked since he was 19, he's now 27. Spends 3 or 4 weeks with us, finds faith.
Wow.
Goes home, tries to sort out his relationship. You know, can he come back and live with his girlfriend? Can he look after his kids? Finds that actually she's willing to do that. He then is like, now I'm sorting my marriage out, I'm sorting my relationship out, I'm seeing my kids. Christian, I'm starting to come to Sunday morning. We get him a job around the corner. He's still in that job to this day.
Fantastic.
Still working there. You know, there's like, you know, just a lad hadn't worked from 19 till 27, working full time, starting to see his girlfriend again, comes to faith.
And see, this is incredible because, yeah, absolutely, it's made an impact on his life. His life is transformed. But actually now, his girlfriend's life is going to be transformed and his children's life is going to be transformed. The trajectory for them was a broken family life, you know, pain, heartbreak, absent father. And now it's not just Carl's life, it's his children's life, it's his girlfriend's life. Amazing. Yeah.
So no, that's just final one. Janet, who's incredible story of, she has a couple of kids and her life's all over the place. She's been raped. She's had a terrible time of it. She's not properly housed. And she comes, most of our time we're not even training, we're just rebuilding her confidence, letting her cook, letting her do different things. As through the input of many, many people, she comes to faith. And we get her a place to live, a place to get sorted. And, you know, she's getting more back on an even keel. It'd be wrong for me to say she's on an even keel with the experience, you know, she's gone through. So she comes to faith, she got baptised. She's now joining in other ministries in the church. She's visiting the Connect groups. She's doing other stuff. To the point where, you know, her life's getting, you know, back on track, back to some routine, back to normal. She's attending church. She's going to the Connect groups. Like I say, she's been baptised, joining other ministries. You know, she's paying her bills. She's got a place that keeps her on an even keel and sorted. Again, and that's just as she's left 313, other ministries have picked her up.
Yeah.
And
this is the role of the church, isn't it, alongside 313? And this is part of that partnership, isn't it? You know, people in isolation spiral, but actually people within community, especially kingdom community, there's so much hope and there's transformed lives that are sustainable, isn't it?
So that's the reason for let's work with the church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other ministries of the church or the church discipleship program or wherever it is has to take these guys forward. 313 can't do that.
Yeah.
All credit to the ministries over here for looking after her and, you know, making things happen for her.
Amazing. I think it's been incredible to hear your journey with it, the church's journey, and how Taking Ground's, you know, journeyed that, but also to hear the stories of lives transformed and impacted, and the knock-on effect of that is huge. You know, we have conversations up in Sunderland. If we can just transform just one life, it isn't just one life, because they know people, and the impact of that is huge. Amazing. Steve, it's been amazing to have you on and hear your story. With every person I have on, I ask them about a worship song that is speaking to you at the moment. If it's just a lyric, a line, or the whole song. Is there something for you that jumps out that's speaking to your heart, and why? What's God saying?
I wouldn't say it speaks to me in moments, it's pretty much the song I carry in my heart all the time. It's like, it's History Maker by Delirious.
Okay.
It's what I want to be.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like it's the sound of what I think we all want to be. Really, I think I find it strange if you don't want to leave a legacy, if you don't want to make history, not for yourself, just for God.
Yeah.
You want to, I want to be a history maker and be a part of someone's life, and I mean, when I think about 313, I don't touch the learners' lives really very much anymore. I don't get much hands-on teaching. A lot of it's all the stuff behind the scenes now. But without that stuff even behind the scenes, we couldn't create other people's histories, new history for people.
Yeah.
And so I've always wanted to be a history maker. Even now I have desires for new ministries to pop up out of me, for new charities to start in me, to create new histories for new people. So History Maker by Delirious is always my song. It's always the one that I go back to. It's always the one that motivates me. In fact, it's so much so that actually, if you look on the wall in my house, the kids have got, for Father's Day, they've got it, like, it looks like, like when you win a gold disc.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
yeah,
that, and underneath
like
it says, it says something like, thanks for being a great dad for teaching us to be history makers.
Amazing.
Amazing. So it's the one that I carry all the time. It's the one that I want to be, want to achieve in life, I suppose.
Yeah, amazing. And Steve, if people listening today could pray for 313, what would be one or two things that they could just be lifting 313 up in?
Always that we transform lives.
Yeah.
Always that the gospel is given and that salvation comes and disciples are made. That would be first and foremost. That's what's on the tin.
Yeah.
It's the gospel that changes the lives, not 313. It's Jesus that does that. We just want to be vessels to do that. That we do that. We're currently trying to do that not just in words and works. We are trying to see some signs and wonders.
Yeah.
And in that, so you'll find a lot of our staff now are looking for words of knowledge and stuff like that. God flows through our staff and gives words of knowledge, prophecies, healings, etc. And then the last thing, which is always needed from a practical point of view, is provision, contract wins, grant wins, our wins, our financial input to purchase new businesses or new things, assets that we want to do things for.
Great.
So pray for all that.
Well, we can definitely do that. I'm sure everyone at home will be really pleased to pray those things over you and over 313 and all the stuff. Steve, thanks so much. It's been really fascinating to talk to you and inspiring. I hope people listen to this, feel inspired to do all that God's put in them. And yeah, we see some incredible transformed lives as a result.
Yeah, thanks,
bless you.
Rich.
Thank you.
Bless you.
We hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you've got a story to tell, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear it. You can contact us at podcast@takingground.org.uk. See you next time.